Mr. Melvin Yong.
Mr. Deputy Speaker, I stand in support of the bill. The comprehensive amendments proposed to the Penal Code are timely and will serve to ensure that our laws remain relevant in the new digital era. However, I'd like to seek clarifications on some parts of the bill. First, I strongly support the proposed amendment that targets voyeuristic activities. As MHA and MinLaw have noted, there is a bustling online marketplace for upskirt photos and videos. Unfortunately, the current law we have is inadequate to address the problems brought about by the advancements in micro-camera technologies and the prevalence of such cameras to the general public. There is a need for targeted laws to outlaw the act of observing or recording a person without their consent. But while this will serve to protect victims of voyeurs, some private investigators have expressed concerns. How would they be impacted by this new offense? Can the PIs continue to conduct surveillance operations to collect evidence for their clients? Next, I'm in full support of the repeal of marital rape. This is a long-awaited change. Married women should have the same access to protection as unmarried women, but there remain practical challenges in implementing this. Some of my residents have also spoken to me to voice concerns over potential false allegations of rape by an estranged spouse. This is not inconceivable for strained relationships. I would therefore like to ask what safeguards are there to ensure such allegations are carefully dealt with. Mr. Deputy Speaker, I also welcome the proposed new Section 304C, which makes it an offense to cause or allow the death of a child or a vulnerable person. Notable cases in recent years have made this change necessary. In 2016, 2-year-old Muhammad Daniel Muhammad Nasir died after 5 weeks of abuse by his mother and her boyfriend. In 2017, a couple tortured 26-year-old waitress Annie E. Yu Lian, who had intellectual disabilities, for 8 months. She subsequently died. In both cases, the victims were vulnerable and abused by their caregivers. The new provision proposed in Section 304C would apply to both the person who committed the unlawful act as well as to someone who witnessed the abuse but stood by and did nothing to stop the abuse. While this deterrent will provide greater protection to vulnerable people by putting the onus on witnesses to report the abuse, but what if the witness was also a victim of abuse, either mentally or physically, by the perpetrator? For example, take the case of a mother who is a victim of abuse herself, and out of fear, she did nothing to stop the abuse to her child. She would have been liable under the new proposed Section 304C. I would therefore urge that we consider such circumstances and the mental state of the individuals before we consider prosecution. Mr. Deputy Speaker, another proposed amendment is to raise the minimum age for criminal responsibility to 10 years old, up from the current 7. I note that this was a recommendation by the Penal Code Review Committee, which was of the view that raising the minimum age would not be a significant risk to public safety. While this change might seem reasonable if we compare the minimum age to global benchmarks, I have my concerns and ask that we could perhaps also look at things in the local context. Let me explain. Locally, we are experiencing an increasing trend of reported cases of children beyond parental control. The number of cases has risen from 71 in 2016 to 108 in 2018. The ages of these children are also getting younger. Statistics from MSF show that for those between 11 to 12 years old, the number of BPC cases increased almost threefold, from 3 in 2016 to 8 in 2018. While those in the age band of 13 to 14 years old saw an increase of more than twofold, from 24 cases in 2016 to 56 cases in 2018. According to recent reports by MSF, we are also seeing BPC cases involving children 10 years old and younger. In my previous life as a police officer, I was always concerned to see young offenders, especially those who were still in primary school. Mr. Deputy Speaker, this upward trending of beyond parental control cases goes against the proposed increase of minimum age for criminal responsibility. I worry that it would lead to a phenomenon where unruly, unsupervised young children can possibly commit crimes without liabilities. We must watch this trend carefully. We need to pay close attention to young at-risk children, as well as the number and age of young offenders arrested for crime. More importantly, are there plans to effectively arrest the trending increase of beyond parental control cases? Lastly, the proposed amendments to the Penal Code have generally resulted in increases to the maximum jail sentences. This would possibly lead to a corresponding increase in jail time meted out to offenders. What would be the impact on our prisons? And does our prison service have the resources, both in terms of infrastructure and manpower, to support this? Mr. Deputy Speaker, I will conclude by reiterating my support for the proposed amendments in the Criminal Law Reform Bill. The amendments are essential to ensure that our penal code continues to remain relevant in today's context. I would also like to thank the men and women in the Penal Code Review Committee for their hard work put in over more than 2 years to put together this bill. Mr. Deputy Speaker, I support the bill.